we'll call the meeting to order for the Town of Basalt Town Planning and Zoning Commission meeting on April 16th. Do you want to do a call to order?
I will do the roll call. Bill Marin. Oh, I'm so sorry.
He's here.
Yep, he is
No.
here. He's chewing. Kyle Oberketter.
Here.
Eric Vozek.
Here.
Rob Levitt is absent. Cindy Hirschfield. Here. Katie Hostetler.
Here.
Mike Horvath.
Here.
And let's see. 1, 2, 3. And that's it. Our other two members are alternates and they're not here.
Great.
You have a quorum.
Wonderful. First order of business then is to approve the meeting, the minutes from February 6, 2024. Are there any concerns, questions? If not, we can entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
We have a first from Bill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Kyle. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. The next item is to continue the public hearing on 168 Original Road minor subdivision application. Do we have a motion to continue that action until May the 7th?
I'll make a motion.
Katie makes it first. Anybody second?
I'll second.
Cindy seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Excellent. The next item then is a code amendment on the Town Code Chapter 18 building regulations, cleaning up and clarifying some amendments on sustainable building regulations. I will hand that over to staff.
Yeah. This is a courtesy review to this group. First reading was had at Town Council last week. And similar to, well, I'll just give you the whole spiel here. In September 22, the Town Council voted to approve several amendments to the sustainable building regulations through the adoption of ordinance number 16. Those amendments were really to just clean up some of the code language and to make the uses a little easier to understand as staff continues to work through the code use with building permits. As we continued to work with those SBRs, we found in February of 2023 that there was some formatting issues and other just kind of syntax issues that weren't really substantial, so there was a second amendment then, which is not unusual for building or land use codes. As we're having more use and more building permits coming in, just as it is that time of year and whatnot, Mitch Miller, our chief building official, has really been working through a lot of the code with applicants and just has found areas where he could make it a little more clear for people to use the things. Again, no substantive changes, just wording and ordinance. So I don't even have a good example or a fun thing to show you because it really is it's very specific and minor.
Can I?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read it in detail.
Mm-hmm. I knew you would.
And it did appear to make it a lot more restrictive in a number of ways. I mean, you can do that, I guess, but I don't know if anyone knows that that's happening when they're voting on it.
Yeah, I don't think it actually makes anything more restrictive. There are a lot of links in the existing document that you have to follow to get somewhere to find the number or the standard, and this way it's just put in the document.
Well, it seemed to take a lot of the prescriptive parts away.
Yeah, there aren't really usually good options for the prescriptive options, so.
Yeah, so those were gone.
Uh-huh.
Those were all crossed out. It was kind of difficult to read because it was the highlights were the changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the strike-throughs were the deletions.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't say that because it usually is like an underscore for the new language and a strike-through. So and it was happening in the middle of words and stuff. But the upshot is it wasn't just there were a lot of clarifications in there, just language, syntax, stuff like that. But it seemed like a lot of things were removed, and then you had to go to subsections so and so, so and so, and so and so to find out what had been removed.
Yeah, I think what happened in some areas was that the initial draft would have definitions, and then the definitions would actually relate to all of the sections, but they'd only be in one section, for example. And so we made that a separate section and sort of things like that.
It just seemed, it seemed to make it more confusing to me than less confusing, and it's a document I use a lot, so.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to take your specific comments back to Mitch.
No, then I didn't want to take that much time to review it, because that would have been, take like days.
Yeah,
So, but anyway, I mean, it's fine, it's gonna get approved with what it is. But it's, just be clear, it's not about making it just simpler.
yeah, I guess I'm not quite sure I agree with you, but I appreciate your input.
Anybody else read the entire document?
Sorry.
Phil, I thought we were just going for the blower door test.
Yeah,
I was only, it was only about that when it related to multifamily, and it had no exception for that, and I don't have the purview to add an exception to it, so it's like, I'm not gonna say anything other than. But I would like to see that, but we're not gonna go there now.
yeah. Well, that's the exciting update there. But I'll be happy to share your feedback with Mitch too.
Other comments, feedback, thoughts? Good on our end?
Nope, nothing for you to do there. Just a courtesy referral.
Great. Are we keeping live for the work session?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So then the next item then is a work session on the Southside Traffic Study update. Well, again, hand that over to staff.
Yes. Let me please share my screen here. Just a quick second. There we go. We have with us this evening Yancey Nichols from Sopris Engineering, and we've got Curtis Rowe from Kimley Horn, traffic engineers that's on Zoom with us. And so this is a work session on an updated traffic study for Southside Basalt that was completed by Sopris Engineering and Kimley Horn Transportation Engineers on behalf of various property owners in Southside Basalt. And as some background, in 2016 and 2017, there was a traffic study for all of Southside that was conducted by SGM to determine how much development could occur in Southside and still be able to maintain an acceptable level of service from a traffic engineering standpoint at the Basalt Avenue and Highway 82 intersection. And we have a photo of the intersection here that we're talking about. The 2016-2017 report also looked at improvements to accommodate the build-out scenario that was outlined in the 2016-2017 study. And that build-out included Stotts Mill, it included Basalt Vista, it included Basalt mini storage expansion, as well as development on some vacant parcels in Southside, and they're these parcels that are along Southside Drive that go all the way up to the high school and that are in the town's urban growth boundary. And you see the map here showing all those vacant parcels. There's also some other vacant parcels, including the car wash parcel that was approved for the car wash on Southside Drive. There's also a vacant parcel on Basalt Avenue, which is right by that 525 Basalt Avenue building. And so the conclusions of that 2016-2017 traffic study were that with laneage improvements, as well as other improvements, including a mini roundabout at the Cody Lane Basalt Avenue intersection, which is this intersection here, that the level of service could be accommodated for the development that was in the chart that's in your packet. The developments that were approved in Southside were required to contribute monetarily on a fair share basis to the roundabout improvement at the Basalt Avenue Cody Lane intersection. And the laneage improvements that were recommended were actually made shortly after the traffic study was done. They were made in conjunction with the Basalt Avenue underpass, pedestrian underpass. And so those laneage improvements included having an additional lane, so that now you currently have a left turn lane coming out. You have a left turn lane and a through lane that are combined, and then you have a right turn individual lane going onto the highway. And so as such, the development that was included in the 2016-2017 traffic study was also the basis for the 2020 Basalt Master Plan density guidelines. And so you can see those in this chart that's in your memo. So you had the 2020 Master Plan scenarios, and as I noted, those were based on the 2017 traffic study. And so the applicants have done an updated traffic study that was conducted by Sopris Engineering, who hired also Kimley Horn on behalf of these property owners in Southside. And so the updated traffic study was done to look at whether the traffic assumptions from the 2016-2017 study still hold true, as well as whether there are other improvements that could be done to help increase the capacity at that Basalt Avenue Highway 82 intersection. And so they recounted the baseline traffic since it has changed since 2017. They also looked at other improvements that could be done to increase the capacity that are more economical and maybe more realistic or feasible than the $30 million Southside Drive underpass that has kind of been examined in the past as the ultimate solution. And so the conclusions of the traffic study that was done this year by Kimley Horn was that there could be considerably more capacity that could be added by making some additional laneage improvements to remove the split phase turning movement. And so those improvements included removing the split phase on the north and south side approaches to Basalt Avenue so that there would be 2 left turn lanes and then an individual through lane and a right turn lane. So it would add 1 lane coming out of Basalt Southside, and it would remove the southbound left turn lane onto East Cody Lane, and it would be replaced with a roundabout at the East Cody Lane Basalt Avenue intersection. And so by doing that, and you can see the improvements we're talking about, 2 outbound left turn lanes, an individual through lane, and then a dedicated right turn lane, and then a roundabout, 1 lane roundabout at the Cody Lane intersection. So that would allow for the removal of the split phase turning movement, which would mean that both the north and the south side could turn onto Highway 82 at the same time, which is different from the way it is now. Currently, it's split phase, so you have to wait for the north side to turn, and then the south side gets their chance to turn. And so by getting rid of the split phase, you can remove a lot of the queuing that happens and reduce the times. And as such, that would increase the capacity at this intersection. And so staff this evening would recommend hearing from Sopris Engineering, Yancey, as well as Curtis from Kimley Horn to fill in any technical gaps, and then asking questions of them if you have technical questions. Town staff and the consultants actually reviewed the draft traffic study with CDOT, And CDOT indicated that they agreed with the study findings and the improvements that were outlined. So staff at this discussion would ask P&Z to kind of provide feedback on the proposed improvements to identify whether you think that they're good improvements to consider making. And it would be good to understand if you thought they were desirable improvements. You don't have to go into how much density should be allowed in Southside. You know, that would be considered as part of a formal master plan amendment process that would be subsequent to these discussions, which would require public hearings. And but staff anticipates having a similar work session with the council after P&Z to identify whether they think these improvements are worth kind of pursuing further. Staff does believe that getting rid of the split phase will significantly improve the intersection because there's a lot of time that's used in waiting for the other side to turn and come across. Staff also believes that considering the potential from some additional density in Southside could have the potential to help with workforce attainable housing situation, in that the majority of the vacant parcels that are covered by this traffic study are actually parcels that would require annexation. So the town has more negotiating power on those parcels as well. But so that's kind of the background and history of the updated traffic study. Yancey, do you have any comments you'd like to add, or Curtis, to the technical aspects?
James, I might just add a couple things real quick. And so how Sopris really got engaged and commissioned to do this was Basalt Trade Soaks came to me and said, you know, if we start planning our parcel, what do you think of traffic? And I told him, I can't answer that. The study is so old and there's been substantial improvements and things have changed that I felt a new traffic study to evaluate where we were at was really important for me to respond to that. And so they asked me to move forward, and in that process I came to the town staff and James and said, you know, we're looking at this, and then it became evident, you know, we shouldn't be just looking at a project and then another traffic study for a project and another. So James and I and other staff said, you know, this should be maybe Southside has a finite build out because of the way the conservation easements, we should probably just update the 2017 with all the new knowledge. And so then I worked with staff to really kind of dive in on how that should be, and it wasn't specifically done for one parcel, it was done for all of them. And in that process, you know, Habitat was poking around and Aspen Ski Corps, so we got feedback from them and other folks and put the study together back and forth with the town staff. And then of course we went to CDOT to make sure, because they're the ones that would issue the permit for these improvements for the town of Basalt if they're ever done. And so that's just a little more background is why Sopris worked with the town staff to bring forward this kind of a traffic study, which, you know, I think it's a really good planning tool to move forward. And then, you know, down the road, if a parcel wanted to annex or look at some development, they would do their own traffic study based upon site-specific in compliance with this study. So it would really make it easier to evaluate the impacts going on the south side from that point. So I just wanted to kind of share that. And of course, Curtis is a guy that's on that can answer all technical things and some of those other things if you want to get into that. But otherwise, we're here to answer any questions you may have.
I think at this point, it's questions, feedback, concerns, anything we want to know or know, Bill?
Yeah. Yeah, I understand the usefulness of all of this as a baseline tool to kind of update the studies, and especially as it relates to, you know, crossing Highway 82 and the interaction with CDOT with all of the traffic improvements. But one thing I was thinking about with this, and it does not seem to be addressed with it, is that on either side of I'm looking specifically at the Cody Lane, Basalt Avenue roundabout drawings. on either side of this, there's two of Basalt's major dedicated bike grade-separated bike paths. So, and as such, there's probably, especially more in the future, there's gonna be more and more bike traffic. But there seems to be no thought provided to bicycle lanes, not grade-separated bicycle lanes, but just striped bicycle lanes. If you were to add something like that, you'd have to share a full traffic lane at the roundabout, which isn't the most safe thing to do on a bicycle, but it's probably the legal thing to do. So if you're transiting on a bicycle to get into the underpass, to connect the two bike paths, or just to get to school, say, to get to the high school on a bike,
Yeah.
you're gonna get jammed up right there at that. So I wanted to know, is there a way to accommodate, because, a bike lane isn't as wide as a traffic lane, but I know that's a very space-constricted spot. So how can something like that be, when we move, I'm not criticizing this.
No, I understand, Bill.
When we use this data going forward, we're gonna have to find a way to accommodate something like that, more than likely.
Yeah.
Otherwise, those two bike paths get marooned from each other.
Yeah. So we haven't gone to the next step of trying to actually survey and try to go into some preliminary design. We looked at it from a modeling standpoint what the roundabout does for traffic. So I couldn't answer that, maybe Curtis, because he's a traffic engineer that deals with bicycles and automobiles and intersection design, that maybe has some thoughts how that would be incorporated in the future, but I'm sure that would be a part of the analysis as this thing gets designed out.
That's what I'm saying, is it's time to, because I understand what you're going with the numbers and trying to do to make sure the intersection functions. But, I think, and also, roundabouts and pedestrians are a dicey situation too. And so all of those things take more space.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that we should consider moving forward.
Yeah, I would.
And having a pedestrian-friendly community, we cycle really, the kids are using that all the time, plus the neighborhood using that. It's a great
Yeah.
point.
And I just don't think they should be sharing a full lane of traffic with cars.
I don't know if Curtis has.
Yeah,
Yeah, see?
Yeah. Good evening, members of Plan Commission. I'm Curtis Rowe with Kimley Horn, traffic engineer. And yeah, those are great comments. As Yancey mentioned, from this exhibit, this was the start of the concept. Part of this was to identify if we could fit everything in here in terms of the lanes so that we could remove the split phase. Jim described that very well. That's a significant improvement to the highway. That we don't have to just serve southbound traffic and then northbound traffic. Instead of doing those sequentially, we can actually serve north-south together. And so all of that green time goes back to the highway. And so we turn this intersection, which is operating at level service F, as in Frank, so it's a failing level of service, into a level service C, as in Curtis. And so it's operating much, much better. So a significant amount of traffic could be added to the leg. With regards to bicycle and pedestrians, pedestrians actually, through studies of roundabouts, have shown that they are safer for pedestrians. Obviously, traffic, as you circulate a roundabout, you are at a controlled speed. Everybody is circulating at that slower speed. And so it's much safer for a pedestrian to cross than, say, the existing condition where you have stop control and you have no diversion for those traffic movements around a circle. And so you can have a higher speed conflict or collision that may occur relative to that. And so from a standpoint of safety, we're seeing all the studies, all the results of that are showing that they are very safe for pedestrians. Excellent comments relative to bikes. We've designed them both ways. There are some roundabouts where there's a high amount of commuter traffic on bicyclists and bicycles, and so they would prefer to travel through the roundabout as a vehicle. What's nice about the roundabout, obviously, is we're controlling that circulating speed. We're controlling them to the speed that bicycles travel. And so because of that, it operates very well for bicycles to use that same space, that shared space with a vehicle. The other way that we've done it is we'll do bicycle ramps on the approach to the roundabout and connect those into this trail system. So I can see that working very well there on the east side of the roundabout, and configure that in. And as Yancey mentioned, if this moves further into that design, those would be things that we would consider is how we facilitate that connection and obviously make sure that that's safe for all modes.
Yeah, because I do a fair amount of time commuting on a bike, and so like your interactions on a bike with a Honda Civic are one thing, but an F-350 is a very different thing. They usually can't even see you.
Yeah.
So it's just, thought needs to be put to that, and I just want to make sure that when we do things like that, we think about it like that.
Yes, very good.
Curtis, you mentioned right now it's a grade F. Is there a primary reason why it's failing, quote unquote?
Yeah, it's failing in the morning peak hour. There's just too much traffic on the side streets to sequentially handle that from the southbound and the northbound approach. And so having dual lefts, taking out that through, separating that through means that we can serve those simultaneously. So if you think about it, there's only so much that we can dice those 3 minutes. And so if we're providing green time for the southbound approach for 30 seconds, and then we're serving the northbound approach for 30 seconds, because that's what collectively each of those need, then we're able to provide the highway with the 2 minutes of green time. Well, that's not enough green time. The highway needs more than that. And so if we're able to take those two 30-minute increments together and share them so that north-south go together, now we've freed up an extra 30 seconds, 2.5 minutes that we could serve the highway. And so we're actually able to give green time back to the highway and also improve operations for north-south movements. And so removing that split phase is significant. And this roundabout is what facilitates it, because we're able to shift those northbound lanes over to the west so that we can have an extra northbound approach lane. That's really what we need. And it's a very feasible solution. As you can see here, we're using the existing pavement for those lane conditions, lane assignments, because we no longer need a southbound left to Cody Lane. It's a single lane roundabout. And so that traffic would just enter the roundabout as they do in just one approach lane. We don't need 2 approach lanes anymore.
Are we able to know what the numbers were between the increase in traffic between the time the last study was done and this current one?
Curtis, did you hear that question?
I did, yes. And let me look to see,
Yeah,
because we did do new counts. Sorry, go ahead while I look.
yeah, you go ahead and look, Curtis. It's a little difficult because between the times, there's quite a bit of development that's been added, CO'd and et cetera, and we try to take that in account, but our baseline is go count the intersection, that moment, and then look at future development. I don't know if we ever try to go back and subtract out traffic for what's new development to see how it compared to the old counts, but we count to count, we can actually look at the 2 studies and say that there's just different development between the counts.
Yeah, I mean, I would
Don't
just
know
be
if
curious to know, like, can you say in 2017 there were, 1,500 trips a day coming out of there, and now it's 3,000, or, I mean,
Yeah.
we've got to know that comparison, right?
Guessing Curtis is looking and he'll be
Okay.
able to answer that if we want to go on to some other
And this
questions.
estimated 5,000
Yeah.
trips, that's for future, when everything's built out?
That's right. And of
Yes,
course,
that's correct. I actually have those numbers. And so the previous traffic volume was about 3,300 on that south leg. And today's count, it was 4,800. So we've gone from 3,300 to 4,800. So almost a 50% increase in those years since 2017. With the additional project traffic and the timing of those, in 2030, we evaluated a short-term project horizon. 2030, that volume could be 9,900. So you can see that, that we're accommodating a fair amount of traffic with the full build out, and yet still improving this intersection, the state highway intersection, above existing operations, even with that much more traffic.
And is it possible to try the new lane arrangement try it without the roundabout at first?
No, the roundabout allows us to do it. That's the creative way that Curtis came up with. It wasn't really any other study, is getting rid of that split left. Curtis analyzed it, but we have to build the roundabout to be able to do that.
And what kind of roundabout are you envisioning? Like one like the entrance to Aspen, or one like up in Snowmass that everybody drives over and doesn't pay attention to?
I don't think we know the answer. I think it's maybe a hybrid, but I think it's gonna be somewhere closer to the mini roundabout that you're talking about, that you drive over, but we probably have something more. It just depends on the geometry and what we can fit in there, but it's gonna be a single lane roundabout. Curtis made some assumptions on that for the study for CDOT, but that's yet to be determined.
Okay.
Yeah, the good thing about this intersection, it's really wide, I mean, as you know, so we're able to fit a roundabout in here without any significant modifications to those corners. But yeah, as we get into the full design, we'll understand better, like Yancey said, what that looks like.
As part of this study, did you guys look at that 1,500 vehicle a day or increase, and if it aligned with the assumptions that you're making for growth? Like, did you take the development that's happened 2016, put it to the 1,500 vehicles, and kind of check your assumptions for growth? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, our traffic study is actually conservative, and so, you know, we believe that it'll be this volume or actually less. So we wanted to make sure that anything that was proposed operated acceptably for what potentially could develop in there, and so that did include a comparison to the volumes and the development that's occurred. So yeah, that's a great question. You know, as Yancey mentioned, this has been through CDOT, so you know, we had a lot of iterations and discussions, and so one of their main things was making sure that the queues, the stack of vehicles, works and fits in that space. And so, you know, that's why on this screen here you see the split, the mini roundabout there on the right that shows the teardrop. That's a what if condition or what if scenario, and that is only if there is queuing that extends into the roundabout, but we don't anticipate that happening. But in terms of that, once we showed CDOT that as being a very easy solution fix, if there happens to be queues that extend from the signal into the roundabout, they were pleased and very happy then with this solution. So they're fully on board. They see that that this improvement provides significant benefit to their state highway.
And then, you know, call it 80% of the road dedicated to turn lanes on 82, which makes sense. And then you kind of just have a sliver left over for the people going straight. Do those slivers align? And, you know, at most intersections you see sort of a concrete separation between north and southbound traffic, to kind of give it some definition, especially I just call it in a snowstorm, where you can't see these lanes, and it's pretty untypical to have 80% of a roadway dedicated to one-way traffic and 20% the other way. So does that fit in there, or has that analysis been done at all?
You know, we haven't done design work, Mike, and I would probably think, depending on what year, or, you know, if it's in the next couple of years, or if it's 5 or 6 years down, the town decides to move forward with this roundabout. It's always revolving, and that's something that would go into the first 30% design drawings. Is, you know, it's a pretty short distance between the roundabout and a signal light, so I don't know if some type of barrier would make sense, but I could understand, you know, you got all these lanes on one side and one on the other, so it could be confusing for somebody that's not a local person, so.
Yeah, just figure someone coming from the north side of the highway south, you know, like in Elgin and Willits, they all have that little bit of that barrier.
Or
someone coming to a basketball game in February when it's snowing and they're not used to it.
Yeah, just a thought.
Nobody uses it correctly now. Those two lanes, nobody knows what to do with that, so people generally just go straight in the middle.
I'm curious if you considered at all making Cody Lane on the west side a one-way. I know that would potentially impact the other intersections and exits from that area, because I just could see an instance where the roundabout gets really clogged during busy traffic times, and there could potentially be backup on Highway 82 if there's people exiting Cody Lane on the west side, but the roundabout is blocked, if that makes sense. And I feel like Cody Lane on the west side doesn't have a ton of traffic I mean, that's just based on my, pure assumption, but I don't know if that was considered at all.
Yeah, that's a good question, good comment. That definitely could occur. That alone, though, wouldn't provide the improvement to remove the split phase, and so we still need to provide the roundabout control, even if that were modified to one way. The main thing is with queuing, that they're shown on the right side of the screen with that teardrop. That means that southbound traffic, as you can picture as you enter the roundabout, you have free flow movements. And so you're continuously traveling, either making a right to Cody or going straight on Basalt Avenue. And so in that case, we never have queues that back up to the state highway. And so that's what CDOT was most concerned with.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. And so with the timing improvements that we're doing to the state highway, we're giving more time to the highway by, concurrently serving north-south, but we're also making it much shorter for queues for us, for northbound and southbound traffic. We get to use some of that time savings ourselves. And so we're going to see improvements at that intersection on all the approaches. So that, even though like today that intersection gets clogged up, but once this gets improved, things will clear up significantly here on the south side.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you did make that one way, from the Big O area direction towards the roundup, they're just gonna go to another leg to get
Right.
out. So, I mean, maybe after several years and you're starting to get closer to build out in the south side, it might be, you could count it and see how those legs are distributed to see if you did restrict it. But, right now, if the traffic grows as the model, we don't have an issue. And of course, modeling traffic is an art, science. So we'll, 20 or 25 years from now, we'll dictate that.
A few questions about your grades of this intersection. If we're an F now, what was it in 2017? And you said bringing it up to a C, or bringing it up to this gets us to a C. And does this just accommodate this? That's a C at 2030 traffic levels or a C at current traffic levels?
Yep, that's a great question. We can go through this table. Thank you for flipping to this page. And so what you can see here, this is the State Highway 82 and Basalt intersection. And so the first row, 2022 existing, that shows the level of service grades that are there during the morning peak hour and the afternoon peak hour. So that's the level of service today. So the morning peak hour is worse. It's operating at a level of service F. In the afternoon, it's currently a D. With these proposed improvements, by removing the split phase, you can see the row below that, the existing with the pound symbol, or as the young kids call it, hashtag. You can see that improves that to level of service C in both of those peak hours. Now let's jump down to 2030. You can see that level of service F, the delay increases by about 10 seconds per vehicle, but otherwise it's an F. And then the PM stays at D at 54.5 seconds, which is only a half second from going to a level of service E. But with our improvements, we're at C. 2030.
One second before you continue. What is background, pound, and then background plus, and then plus?
Yep.
Yeah, what is the differentiation there?
So 2030 background means that there is no other development that's occurred in Southside at all. The only thing that's changed is that the highway traffic volumes have increased. So for another 8 years, from 2022 to 2030, we have what CDOT is projecting their growth to be on the state highway and what the result of that level of service is then at the intersection. And so the background plus project, so the middle rows there, that includes all of the south side development.
Under the
The plus is the full
the
development.
higher density assumption.
And maybe to help answer your other question is, what was it back prior to the underpass and the other lane work? You know, from where I said, and I think maybe if you were here and you experienced it, was probably a double or triple F. Remember, the cars backed all the way down the other intersection the other way because the Highway 82 was getting hit with ped crossings, and so far across 82 that the time for the peds to get across safely was eating up all the green time. So CDOT had all the green time on 82, and the side for the town was almost zero, and so it was backing way down before the underpass really helped that issue in some of the lane work. So to answer your question, it was way worse prior to 2017.
And so, really, the best we can do is to put a Band-Aid to get it to a C.
Well, C's considered quite high.
Oh, that is, okay.
Oh,
So no
yeah.
one reaches like an A.
Yeah, especially on the 82 corridor, guys.
Tough
I was an
grading
A-plus
curve.
student, so I never saw C's in my life.
I was C, so C was okay.
Yeah,
No,
Steve-
okay,
Steve's
that's
very
good to
good.
okay, I didn't
So-
understand that about.
Yeah,
But-
and the other thing is guys, it's not so much the traffic on the side street. 82 is just becoming growing and growing and growing and growing.
And so, are there, I guess it seems like this shouldn't be, well, it's opinion, but it sounds like we have done this for if there's more development in Southside, we would look at doing this, but it would seem like this just needs to get done without more development,
Correct.
in an opinion.
That's generally a good statement. I think you're right. With the development that's proved, it's not built, you know, it can fit without triggering it from CDOT standards, but you would get a much level of service. And me sitting on this side of the table, if you ask me to build it, let's build it before I have all the cars I have to deal with traffic control, you know. It's much easier with less cars and less development.
And I was gonna follow up with a question anyway, is there a trigger for the town that says, not development-wise, but traffic-wise, or just saying, you know, we've, obviously Stotts Mills and the, you know, storage units have put in towards something like this.
Yeah.
But is there a trigger for the town that says now's a good time when we're down here maybe, or whatever, before we wait till we're there?
Well, Yancey, correct me if I'm wrong, but through this traffic study exercise, we determined that right now the roundabout is not triggered, and with the currently approved development, we're still at an acceptable level of service without the roundabout.
That's
However,
correct.
once we start to add, you know, some of these vacant parcels, if they came in for development, that would start to trigger the roundabout. And, you know, if you did consider potential for increased density, then you're triggering these other improvements that are recommended by the study.
But isn't it, back to your point, all about the 82 traffic though? And that traffic will just continue to grow, and the whole idea of this is to give more green light time back to 82. And you can also serve, but by giving more, you're still servicing the same amount of north and south traffic.
I'd be a little nervous going there because Curtis came up with a solution to help CDOT, but I don't think the town of Basalt should be doing improvements that solve CDOT's issues on 82. That's just a benefit that CDOT's getting from this by what Curtis has come up for the solution. And of course, I'm with James, is, you know, you may need new annexation or development to help pay for it as a financial benefit. If you try to take on with no development, it's then all on the town. So, and it's not triggered now, and it's not triggered with the development that's approved that hasn't been built.
Yancy, I have a question. at one point, at the far end of Cody Lane, a slip lane into Highway 82 was contemplated. Is that even possible now, or is that an impossibility to do something like that?
You know, you're going back to even before the BRT station was there and all those different discussions and the underpass and the alignment of the bridge. You know, I was here before the bridge existed, and we tried to do infrastructure so that could all happen. It's a big challenge to try to fit that in, and then
Sorry, you're just
process.
referring to going up Valley?
Yeah, up Valley.
Okay,
Because at Cody Lane, that's the only way you can go. It's an up Valley slip lane.
gotcha, okay. Just
But that would take a lot of heat off the intersection at the morning.
Not too much, because your free right
Yeah,
functions fairly
that's
well.
true, that's
It did, when the underpass got happened.
You're talking about a slip lane off of
Cody
East,
Lane.
East Cody.
East
Lane.
Cody.
East Cody Lane,
East
up
Cody
Valley.
here, okay.
So, but that's going, the shelter's going in and.
Do you understand, Curtis, what the Bill's kind of indicating at one time, taking East Cody Lane down there where the cul-de-sac is and build a slip lane on 82 so there would be no right turn at the signal light up Valley, but my thought is that'd be a lot of infrastructure costs for just a little bit of benefit for a free right already.
Yeah, I just was wondering if that whole idea was still in play, or that's a done deal.
Above my pay grade. I think the mayor and the council would,
That was back when they were talking about, you know, a roundabout on Highway 82 and an underpass to South Side.
I think that ship sailed.
Yeah, I just
I
wanted.
had one more question too. So the counts that this study is based on, or this study now, was it done in 2022 or 2023? Because looking at that chart, it looked like 2022.
Do you remember?
Yeah, the counts were done at the end of 2022, but
Okay.
it was performed in 2023.
Okay.
So if you're asking when the counts were conducted, they were conducted when we started the project, which was in November of 22.
So I'd say these have already gone up quite a bit probably since then, because there's been, you know, a whole apartment complex.
So they accounted for
Yeah.
what the approved development was.
But the actual
No, wasn't there an
count
actual
versus-
count in 20, I mean, this study is based on an actual
The
count.
Scottsdale stuff's coming in and the numbers are going up.
So if we
And as
recounted it,
James,
go ahead,
yeah,
Curtis.
go ahead. I was gonna say, as James described, we started with the baseline and then we add the traffic from developments on top. And so we had a new established baseline and then we looked at what other projects are coming in. So some of those are ones that were under construction or that we knew about. So they were the first ones we layered in, and then plus all of the other developments. So it was a stepwise approach in terms of collecting all of the traffic.
But you did an actual traffic count, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
That
so
started-
that was at the
yeah.
end of 2022.
right.
Okay.
And then the ones that's, you know, got people living in or developed were over here on proposed. Now, if we counted, they'd shift over under the counts and go
Yeah.
away from the development side.
Mhm.
So they're accounted for,
That 4,800 number is probably
4,800 was from the end of
52 or 54.
2022, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It's gone up.
it's gone.
Other
Does-
questions, concerns?
So was this funded privately? I know you said originally, and then you came to the town.
Correct. So several of the property owners commissioned me and split that cost. Because, you know, it started out to see if I could solve some of the potential traffic problems, and then, you know, talking to the town, it just made sense to make it as a whole south side study that kind of replaced the 2017.
I guess, would we ever consider taking the next step of like what the true cost of this would be? I guess it doesn't seem like crazy expensive, again, because they found a solution that involves using the current right-of-way, but could be way off on like what I consider expensive.
Well, what I can tell you is, I'll give you a comparison here. I'm sure that this is a multi-million-dollar project at some point, because there's just no way that it's all going to be existing pavement. And for comparison's sake, we only have $4 million for affordable housing. So I don't know, you know, people are going to be trading off between which way does the money go.
That said, with the current approved development in the south side, they're all paying into a fund, which would fund about $500,000 of that
I think,
currently.
Real quick, I don't want you to get stuck on numbers, but way back, we just, you know, and this was I'd say construction cost is at least doubled, but we were just, you know, said $1 million back whatever year that was, and I imagine it's doubled.
You guys had mentioned when it gets triggered by CDOT. When does it get triggered by CDOT? When their flow reaches a certain level of service, or?
Well, right now, and that's interesting, Mike, because CDOT's accepted this traffic study. And you could, or the town could ask for CDOT to give you an access permit. And they would give you a phased access permit. And they did that in the past for Basalt at the Willits roundabout signalized. And then that sets that parameter exactly. And what they would do is Curtis has a number which allows all the development. So that could all happen and not trigger it, but then after that, then it would trigger a new access permit that would probably require these improvements. And so then you would have a signed access permit with CDOT that says that's the trigger mechanism, instead of trying to count here or there or whatever.
So if there's like the steel company, that property's up for sale right now. If someone came in with a development that brought in X amount more traffic, that more traffic could trigger the need to have to do this in order to accommodate that development.
Your scenario with
Yeah.
the town then go to CDOT and say, we want to do this, or the developers would do that, who would kind of have this negotiation, have this
It would be,
contract?
it's the town
The
that
town.
controls it. It's your public road, so the permit has to go through the town. No private developer can do it or get that permit without town sign off. And you guys kind of control it. Because even if you did a development approval on the steel parcel, until it actually generates trips, and if half of Stotts Mill's not built out, CDOT looks at it as trips, and that trip number is in that access permit that I was referring to that's based on this study.
But, you know, process-wise, I think staff was generally thinking that if P and Z and ultimately council think that these improvements are good improvements to make and are going to increase the capacity, reduce the queuing, then the next step would be, as Kyle mentioned, to figure out the overall cost of it, and then kind of figure out the steps to get there and some of the phasing scenarios. I
The
think
normal situation there would be, again, if I use the steel thing, if they brought in a development and it triggered it, they would be responsible to pay for that engineering design.
sure.
Right? Versus us going out and getting ahead of it and trying to understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, if they submitted an application, they would have to submit a traffic study that compared their existing traffic to what their proposed development would generate to see if there's an increase there. And then if there's an increase and that increase is so big, above kind of what the CDOT triggers are, then they would be on the hook. Unless the town established kind of a fair share scenario, which is what we did in 2017, so.
Meyer Steel is for sale?
Uh-huh.
And,
Got a big number on it. They're not closing the business. They're just relocating.
oh, where are they gonna go?
Yeah.
The things popping in our heads?
While you're thinking, if you don't have any more technical questions for Curtis, he kind of had another engagement that he kind of fit us in, but if you have more questions for him, he could sure stay on, but if we can let him go, that would be beneficial to Curtis.
I don't want to speak for everybody. I think, Curtis, I think you're good to go. We appreciate your time, and
Thank
thanks for
you.
the input.
Oh, you bet. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Yep,
Thank you.
Thanks, Curtis.
Bye.
Anybody, anything else for staff, for Yancey? Thoughts?
I have a question, what's next with this?
Next would be to go to council if P and Z were to say, yeah, these improvements seem to make sense. Then staff would be going to council for a work session to see if they agreed. And then if council agrees that these improvements that are included in this traffic study make sense, then, as I said, we would do a costing exercise to figure out the cost in today's dollars, and then, figure out how that would be paid for. And then, it would be possible that we might see a master plan amendment application, and then that would be considered kind of on its own merits, I would say.
So if that's what's gonna happen, Yancy, could you put a couple sentences in there about, the incorporation of pedestrian and bicycle stuff as a further step? So it's not like this is just traffic only and that's all we're going to do.
Yeah, I think if,
Just so council knows
Yeah,
that.
makes sense.
definitely.
I don't know if you want to do that from a staff standpoint to the council, or you want us to put it in the.
Wherever it's best to communicate it.
Yeah.
Well, and if you're comfortable as a board making a motion to recommend, doing detailed study on these transportation improvements, you could add that as part of your motion too.
Okay. Well, are we ready for that?
I mean, it's not necessarily that we're here to make a motion, but if we want to,
Well, we have a recommendation.
recommendation. So, yeah, I think we're ready unless anybody has anything else to add.
I'll do that as make a recommendation, a motion for a recommendation, with the understanding that future work will include pedestrian and bicycle improvements as well as just the traffic numbers. It's not a criticism of what you guys did.
Oh,
no,
I understand
just
what this was coming
I think it's a great comment, recommendation.
We have a motion. Anybody want a second?
Second. It's a tie.
We'll give it to Mike
Give it
today,
to
'cause you had
you.
one earlier. Do you want a roll call or just a voice vote?
I think we can do voice vote.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
Motion carries. Thank you, Yancy.
Thank you very much.
from. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. And our last item then is commissioner comments and staff updates.
Well, I have a million. I'll start with what I have on your, handed out to you. Yard waste collection is coming up. I think this was hot on everybody's, the need for it anyway, was really relevant during recent weather events. See those things together. So anyway, that's April 26th through May 6th. At the Willits Rugby Field, we'll have a dumpster at Albany Park, Cliffs Hillside Park, and Wildwood Park. So encourage you to get your waste composting done there. The town is also having an Earth Day event this coming Monday from 3 to 6. There'll be music, food, all sorts of good stuff. Cool stickers, if anybody remembers the original version of this one. You don't? You might later.
the original,
Oh, yeah.
Not composting.
It's not, the word's not composty on the end. But anyway, and then also we'll have free smaller compost buckets that are countertop size with lids, and they're pretty neat if you need a new one. So that's free. We hope you guys come out to that and share the event with anybody. That's Monday. Tomorrow is Wednesday, the 17th. We are in the beginning throes of the Willits Lane Connectivity and Wayfinding Plan. So you can come give your input on how you use Willits Lane, what you wish was happening there, and any other feedback you want. It's a drop in and vote and make your comments. It's open 4 to 6. There's no presentation, so there's no, just if it works for you, show up. For this particular group, if that tomorrow doesn't work, we're having another one in here for citizen boards specifically.
So the tomorrow night one is here?
No, that's at Takah.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't say that. Yep, that one's at Takah. If you can't make that one, then you can come here the next Wednesday in Town Hall. And we'll be happy to have you. I would love to get, for future meetings on that plan, 1 or 2 volunteers for the stakeholder group, for the plan itself, and then anybody that's really interested in wayfinding or graphic design, a volunteer for that committee too. The wayfinding only has probably 3 meetings, and the stakeholder group doesn't have very many either. I think it's like 4. Can be more if we need it to be more, but that's where we are right now, so. If anybody's really interested in either of those, it would be good to get P and Z members on there as well. Highly recommended. So I won't put you on the spot. You can let me know at the end.
What's the time commitment?
I think in the future, what will happen is after, right now we're in the collect existing conditions input, and then the team will go away for a couple of weeks, month, and create a couple of alternatives, and then we'll sit and have more of a work session for probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half to go over the alternatives. So it's probably 3 or 4 more meetings that'll be longer like that, an hour of meetings.
I'll do that.
Okay.
Do you get an extra pool pass?
Try. Okay.
Still haven't been.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, you guys. Okay. Winning. Okay, other fun updates. We had 8 proposals to build out affordable housing on the Stotts Mill lots that the town owns. So we've gone through an interview process, and the whole selection committee will be taking a design build contract to council next Tuesday with Caddis Architects and Ari Nelson, so we're really excited about that.
What's the projected cost of that build out, like what per square foot?
Yeah, so these are proposals not based on actual plans, so, but we're looking at around $800 to $850 a unit. So we're feeling pretty happy about that.
So 800 to 850, and then are they gonna be duplexes or one
Right now, I
per
think they're
lot? Okay.
Yeah. On parcel 5 in Cypress Meadows, that's the parcel adjacent to the rugby field. We had an RFP out for design and engineering services. We had 19 proposals come in for that. It was a little overwhelming. Usually we get like 4. So we're in the selection committee. We're interviewing the top 5 groups on that next week, and hope to move forward with that soon. And then last, on parcel 2E, which is the parcel across the street from Taka, 2.5 acres, we'll put the RFP out for design and engineering services on that the last week of this month or first week of May. So lots of fun stuff going on.
Is that for daycare?
That's for affordable housing with a community space, which may be daycare, maybe flexible space, TBD.
And that being with the daycare, when's the Stotts Mill one starting, opening,
Yeah,
getting close?
I believe they're having the building permits being issued this week.
Wow.
And we have a fall opening still on schedule. Yeah, super excited. BPAC, you guys may start to see a new sculpture over by the skate park of a tree that was expired, and BPAC commissioned Thomas Barlow to turn it into a pretty cool sculpture, so keep your eye out for that. The Green Team celebrated the solar array groundbreaking on April 2nd at the Basalt High School with Roaring Fork School District Administration, Basalt High School staff, the mayor, Green Team members, Holy Cross, and that'll be completed in coming weeks. So you see solar array coming up, it's coming. And my last update is that this Midland Avenue and Spur intersection, which is really tricky because it's really limiting, will be done in the next several weeks, and hopefully that'll be the worst pinch point of it all, and luckily, hopefully we're getting it done during the off-season, so. That's what I have. James, did you have anything else?
I would remind that we likely will have a meeting on May 7th, but we won't have a meeting on May 21st because the council room's being used that evening for election.
Any idea for June? I'm going to be gone most of June.
We do have a couple applications that are shaping up for June.
Okay.
Yeah. But I can't tell you whether they're going to be the first meeting in June or the second
Okay.
at this point.
Your hall pass is expiring. Just kidding.
I have a hall pass every day now.
But we
Heading to college, so.
we could ask the board, do you know if you generally have June vacations coming up, and is one of the dates better for the whole board or not? And if it's too early, you could just email us.
Yeah. First meeting I could do, second meeting, no.
I know, I'm flexible, pretty good.
You guys have the luxury of those two alternates, so.
Question on the, I always call it the Park Modern Development. I know it's not the technical name. I can't remember the name of it, but did we ever chance to look into when the walkway has to get finished in relation to how many buildings they can put up?
Yeah, it's on a time standpoint, so it's not based on the number of buildings that they put up. And I think it's 2 years. It's either 2 or 4 years after approvals.
After approvals, not after them breaking ground.
Yeah, after approvals. But they're
That might be faster than.
they're
It's already been at least a year since they had approval, so if it's, yeah, okay.
but they've got it programmed early here in their construction phasing. So
And then it was 2 buildings, but the affordable housing was based on number of buildings, right?
yeah, the affordable housing, the first building of affordable housing is supposed to come on at the same time as the third building.
I'm just curious about the building that was approved next to Harry Cheek's office at the end of that road. Is there any update on that, or?
He is working on finding a contractor, I think,
It's in
still
the
at this
process.
point. And
Because that wasn't going to include
cost.
some employee housing, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sure the Treasury's going in the wrong direction to help smaller projects get off them.
Yeah,
Get
it's,
out of the ground.
Yeah, speaking of that, what about town center? Is that,
Yeah, I was gonna ask that.
what, you know, when do they turn into a pumpkin?
They have another year and a half or so, I think, before their vested rights come up.
they're actively working on their construction drawings and whatnot, so.
Oh, they are? Oh, good. Because you know, the money situation is not at a happy place right now, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And the car wash, we were just talking about that car wash. They started digging the hole and filled it in. So what's happening with them?
We haven't heard from them in a while.
They've gone to sleep.
They did get an extension of vested rights, and so that'll be up in a couple months. So we'll see if they come back in for extension or not.
They're close to turning into a pumpkin.
Which one is that?
The car
On
wash
South
is
Side?
Yeah.
So you said that one's gotta be close. It's been a few years.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Questions? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second? Second. Kyle, all in favor?
Yay.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:12. 2 minutes late on your agenda, jeez. I tried.